Venezuela's main consulate in Colombia's capital, Bogota, lies in ruins. An accidental fire in April burned much of it, its walls covered in graffiti and overgrown weeds. It's a tangible symbol of a relationship gone sour since 2019.
Al dictador.
When Colombia's former president Ivan Duque refused to recognize Nicolás Maduro as the president of Venezuela after elections Duque said were fraudulent. But all that has changed with the election of Colombia's first leftist president, Gustavo Petro, who promised to restore relations. Last month, Maduro enthusiastically received Colombia's newly appointed ambassador, a meeting big on laughs and hugs. The Colombian envoy says the neighbors should never have parted ways.
There are some 5 million Colombian citizens that have been totally abandoned for years, without possibility to renew a passport and ID. It was just stupid and inhumane. Whatever the difference is, it doesn't make sense to have no communication.
The two countries have since announced a full reopening of their porous 2,000 kilometers long border for trade and called for the resumption of military collaboration in a region overrun by criminal groups. But despite the many pledges and boastful announcements, restoring full diplomatic relations is easier said than done, because the two countries remain deeply suspicious of one another.
I think it will be a much more complex and long process than what people think. The two countries have deep asymmetries. If you look at trade, Venezuela's industry is in shambles. For the Maduro regime, the most important thing is to show that they're not as isolated as they were. While Colombia has a lot to gain economically, but wants to avoid being seen as cozying up to a less than democratic government.
The arrival of Venezuelan ambassador in Colombia was a noticeable muted affair, and the countries have so far avoided addressing Venezuela's ongoing political crisis and the fate of the more than 2.5 million refugees in Colombia.
The agenda makes no mention of security, of migration, of consulate services. Venezuela's ambassador, Plasencia, has long denied the existence of a migratory crisis, but now that he's in Bogota, he inevitably will have to recognize it and address it.
But even with its many fits and starts, the fact that the two neighbors are talking again is welcome news for millions of Colombians and Venezuelans on both sides of the border. They've been in limbo for years, but now believe there's hope for a more stable future. Rampietti, Jazeera, Bogota.